For years, everything in my life seemed perfect. I had the woman of my dreams, a beautiful bride-to-be, and a best friend who I trusted with my life. We were inseparable, my fiancée and I, always sharing our hopes, dreams, and plans for the future. We had been together for 3 years, and it felt like we were building something that would last a lifetime. I had never once questioned the bond we shared. Every date, every adventure, every quiet night, it felt like an affirmation of how lucky I was to have found her. She was everything I had ever wanted. Smart, funny, beautiful, her laugh was contagious, and her kindness was endless. I had never been more sure about anything in my life than I was about marrying her. We had a beautiful home, a wedding planned for next spring, and a life that I thought was on the right track. There was no reason for me to think anything was wrong. No reason to doubt her loyalty or our future together. And then there was Ethan, my best friend since high school. We had been through everything together, late-night study sessions, drunken weekends, heart-to-heart talks about life and love. No one knew me like Ethan did, and I thought no one could. We were like brothers, sharing everything from dreams to secrets. I trusted him implicitly, just as I trusted her. He was my rock, and the idea of him ever doing anything to hurt me never even crossed my mind. He was the one I confided in about my relationship, about my future with my fiancée. There was nothing about him that made me think for a second he could betray me. But in the back of my mind, I started to feel these small, subtle things. Little moments of distance between us. I noticed my fiancée seemed distracted sometimes, lost in thought when we were together, her mind clearly elsewhere. It was nothing huge, nothing glaring enough to raise any immediate alarms. I had my own life, after all, work, wedding planning, friends, and family. So I brushed it off, convincing myself it was just the stresses of the upcoming wedding, or the routine of daily life creeping in. But then Ethan started pulling away too. He was busy, he said. A little too busy. Sometimes I would invite him out, and he'd have an excuse, or he'd cancel plans last minute. I tried not to read too much into it, figuring maybe he was just going through something personal, but deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't quite right. It was easy to dismiss these little things. Life was busy, we were all moving forward after all, but deep down a part of me felt like I was ignoring something I shouldn't be. Something was wrong, I just didn't know it yet. It was an ordinary evening, or so I thought. I had just finished a long day at work and was excited to head home to my fiancée. We were supposed to have a quiet night, just the two of us. A dinner we had been planning, an evening without distractions. After the chaos of wedding preparations, it was nice to think about just relaxing and being with her. The last few days had been hectic, and I was looking forward to spending some one-on-one time with the woman I was about to marry. As I pulled into the driveway, I noticed her car was already parked. I wasn't surprised, she usually got home before I did. What was odd, though, was that the house was unusually quiet. I called out her name when I walked in, expecting to hear her voice echo from somewhere in the house. But nothing. The silence felt strange, and as I stood in the entryway, I began to wonder where she was. I checked the kitchen and living room, but she wasn't there. I didn't hear any sounds of her being on the phone or music playing in the background, nothing that was typical when she was home. Maybe she was upstairs, I thought. But still I felt uneasy, a strange feeling in the pit of my stomach that I couldn't quite place. I went upstairs, walking slowly, wondering if she had just gotten lost in a book or something. I pushed open the door to our bedroom, and that's when everything changed. There they were, my fiancée tangled up with my best friend in a way I never could have imagined. My mind couldn't process what I was seeing at first. The sight of them together in my own bed made my body freeze. My fiancée, the woman I had been planning to spend the rest of my life with, was in the arms of the one person I thought I could always trust. My best friend, my brother, and everything but blood was holding her the way I had always imagined holding her myself. The sight was like a slap in the face, each second feeling like 1,000 years. I was rooted to the spot, unable to breathe, unable to speak. The world around me seemed to collapse, and I couldn't pull my eyes away. The anger and hurt flooded in at once, but there was no way to release it, no way to process it all in that instant. I wanted to scream, to demand answers, but my throat felt like it was closed off. It was a nightmare that I couldn't wake up from. I tried to make sense of it, tried to justify it in my mind, but the cold reality of what I was seeing hit me like a tidal wave. How could they do this to me, to us, to everything we had built together? It was as if the ground had been pulled out from beneath me, and I was falling, weightless, through a place I never thought I'd be. I don't know how long I stood there, paralyzed, staring at the betrayal that tore through me. The image was burned into my mind, too vivid and sharp to escape. My heart was racing, my breathing shallow. My entire body was stiff, as though I was frozen in place by the shock of it all. Every muscle was tense, but my mind couldn't keep up with what my eyes were seeing. It was like I had stepped outside of my own body, watching it all unfold from a distance, unable to react. I couldn't move, couldn't process anything. The anger was there, boiling underneath the surface, but it was eclipsed by the overwhelming sense of devastation. I wanted to scream, to shout, to make them feel the weight of what they had done to me. But nothing came out. I stood there like a ghost in my own house, unable to do anything except watch the scene before me, waiting for them to notice me, to acknowledge that I was there. But they didn't. They didn't even seem to care. The emotions that hit me were all so conflicting. Part of me wanted to lash out, to demand answers right there in that moment, but another part of me just wanted to run away, to escape the crushing reality that the people I loved most were the ones who had destroyed me. I could hear the blood pounding in my ears, and my chest felt like it was tightening, suffocating me. I had always prided myself on being calm and collected, able to handle any situation, but in that moment, I was utterly lost. What hurt more than the anger was the sense of humiliation. This wasn't just a betrayal, it was a betrayal by the two people I trusted the most. My fiancée and my best friend. They had both promised to love and respect me, to be there for me, and they had turned that promise into a twisted joke. I couldn't escape the images that kept flashing in my mind, their intimate moments, their laughter, their shared connection that I had never been privy to. How long had this been going on? How long had they been hiding this from me, living a double life without my knowledge? I was drowning in my own thoughts, but every time I tried to get a grip on them, they slipped away like sand through my fingers. I couldn't understand it. I couldn't understand it. I couldn't understand how they had thought they could get away with it, or why they thought they were entitled to do this to me. It was like I had been living in a lie, and the truth had only now been revealed in the most painful way possible. The anger was building, but it wasn't just about revenge, it was deeper than that. It was about the shattered trust, the loss of everything I had worked so hard to build. My mind kept replaying the moments we'd shared, the plans, the promises, the life I had thought was ours, and with each memory, the pain seemed to cut deeper. How had it all fallen apart so quickly? In the moment, I didn't know what to do. My mind was racing, flooded with emotions that made it hard to think clearly. Anger, betrayal, confusion, everything hit me at once, and it felt like I was drowning in it. The instinct to confront them, to scream at them, was overwhelming. I wanted to demand answers, to drag out the truth from them, and make them feel the weight of what they had done. But something inside me stopped me. Maybe it was the part of me that still wanted to keep some semblance of control. Or maybe it was the voice inside that told me acting out of pure rage would only make everything worse. I didn't know. All I knew was that I couldn't let this moment define me. So I turned around and walked away. I didn't confront them. I didn't yell or make them aware of my presence. I simply left the room, the house, and stepped outside, trying to breathe in the cool air. It was as if I was trying to escape the suffocating reality of the situation, even though there was no running away from it. I needed space. I needed time to think. The night was a blur. I drove aimlessly, my mind spinning, playing and replaying the images I had seen. I could hardly focus on the road in front of me, my thoughts taking me in every direction possible. How long had they been seeing each other? Was this something that had been going on for weeks, months, or was it just a one-time thing? I couldn't make sense of it. Nothing made sense anymore. I thought about all the years I'd spent with both of them, the friendship, the love, the trust. I had given everything to these people. My fiancée, the woman I was going to marry, the one I had built a future with. And Ethan, my best friend, my brother. How had they both betrayed me so completely? I had always assumed that nothing could ever come between us, that we were untouchable, that our bond was unbreakable. But I was wrong. I had been living in a fantasy, and now the truth was shattering it all. The anger was still there, a constant gnawing feeling deep in my chest. But beneath it, there was something else, a deep, painful sadness that made everything feel even worse. I wasn't just angry. I was heartbroken. Heartbroken because the people I had trusted most had not only let me down, but had done it in the most intimate, painful way possible. As I sat in my car, the weight of everything starting to settle on me, I realized I had a choice. I could let the anger consume me. I could lash out in a fit of rage and destroy everything in the process. Or I could take control of the situation. I could make sure that whatever happened next was on my terms, that I would decide the outcome, not them. And in that moment, I made the choice. I would be smarter than they expected. I wouldn't let them break me. The next morning, I confronted them both. I didn't scream, I didn't shout. I was calm, almost too calm. The raw fury and heartache from the night before had subsided, leaving behind a cold, quiet resolve. I couldn't let them see the pain they had caused me. I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of seeing me fall apart. Instead, I would be methodical, controlled. I had to be. I sat them down, both of them looking uncomfortable, avoiding eye contact, knowing what was coming but unsure how I would react. I didn't waste time with accusations. I didn't need to. The truth was already out there, hanging in the air like a thick fog. I looked at both of them, one after the other, and calmly explained what I had seen, what I knew. My voice was steady, but there was an intensity to it, something that made them both shift uncomfortably in their seats. They knew they couldn't deny it. They knew they had been caught, and no words could undo the damage they had done. The silence that followed was deafening. I didn't ask for explanations. I didn't want any. What could they possibly say that would make this better? What could they offer that would make the betrayal any less painful? I already knew all I needed to know. I wasn't looking for closure. At that point, I knew that closure wasn't something anyone could give me. What I needed was control. I needed to reclaim anything after everything I had lost. I knew I couldn't fix what had been broken, but I could decide what came next. I wasn't going to let them destroy me. I gave them a choice. I told them they could continue on with their lives together, but I wouldn't be a part of it. I wasn't going to be the fool they both thought I was. Or they could walk away and face the consequences of their actions. I wasn't going to beg them to stay or explain myself further. The ball was in their court now. What happened next was a twisted form of closure. They both stood there, shocked, unsure of what to do. I had left them no room for excuses or justifications. They were the ones who had to face the harsh reality of what they had done, and that was enough for me. I didn't need to see them beg for forgiveness, and I certainly didn't need to hear any apologies. It wasn't about that anymore. I left them to make their decision, walked out of the room, and never looked back. It wasn't the revenge I had imagined in my darkest moments, but it was something far more powerful. I had taken control of my own fate, and in doing so, I had reclaimed a sense of self-respect. The pain wasn't gone, but I knew that my future, whatever it held, was in my hands now. It was the beginning of a new chapter, one that would be written by me, not by them.